Welcome back to the Ricky Matthews Show from the Citizens Bank Studio. I always enjoy visiting with my friend Jeff Duncan as we barrel toward the Super Bowl. It's going to be an interesting Super Bowl. All these stories surrounding it. It's in Las Vegas. Someone actually said the other day what happens in Las Vegas this weekend's not going to stay in Las Vegas. So it's going to be really interesting, the news. Somebody's going to make a mistake, and it's going to be interesting to see how all that plays out. Hey, let's shift gears now and move over to my friend Robert St. John. He's a restaurateur chef. He's a SuperTalk columnist. He wrote a really wonderful column recently. He's written many, but we'll talk about that one as well. He's an author and a good friend. How you doing, Robert?
Hey, Ricky, how are you, bud?
I'm doing really, really good, man. You know, I don't ever know where to start with you because you're coming off your book tour. I'm assuming it did really well. The reviews have been terrific. Before we move on from that, how did that go?
Yeah, it went really well. That book was my 13th book. It was called Mississippi Mornings. I'd wanted to do a breakfast book for a long time. I'm a breakfast guy at heart. And I talked to, I had a 3-book deal with a publisher several years back, and it's one of the ones I wanted to do, and they weren't interested in breakfast. So I just kind of filed it in my head that I'm gonna do that later on. And I finally got around to doing that, and it was a blast testing it and writing it. It's got a lot of stories in it about, breakfast in the mornings and being a dad and a family guy with breakfast, and that was fun. I finished the book tour December, about 10 days before Christmas, on a Saturday, and the next Monday we started shooting the next book. So I went from one into the other. The next book is actually a Christmas cookbook. So we needed to do principal photography on that the week before and the week after Christmas while everything was up in the house and the other places we shot. And so that'll come out next November. I'm excited about that one too because I'm also a big Christmas guy. So
yeah,
breakfast and Christmas following up, those are two things I love.
Well, you're a big everything guy. You have a lot going on. It's amazing how you shuffle all these things. And I noticed recently that you're already beginning to sort of plan your Europe travels again for the year, and things are progressing well there. You love Italy especially, but you've obviously been all over. Actually, it's interesting. I'm curious. It's called Mississippi Mornings, but to what extent has your international travels affected something like Mississippi Mornings?
Well, there's actually a story in the book, and my son and I. Well, here's the deal. So in 2011, you and I have talked about this before. In 2011, I took my wife and at the time my 10-year-old son and my 14-year-old daughter. We flew to Sweden, bought a Volvo, spent the next 6 months in 17 countries and 72 cities on 2 continents. Still, the greatest thing I will ever do, whether as a father or just a citizen. It was an amazing thing. And that time, my son and I, the girls would sleep late, and no matter where we were in the world, my son and I would get up early and go have breakfast, whether it was in a market in Barcelona, just, grabbing fresh bread and some fruit and eating it while we're standing up walking through the market, or one of the most memorable breakfasts I've ever had was on top of the Royal Olympic Hotel in Athens with the Temple of Zeus right behind us and the Parthenon up above us on top of the hill. And we had croissants and soft-boiled eggs. And so he and I did breakfast together for years and years and years. But during that period, when he was 10, was really the sweet spot where he got up with me every morning. And as a dad, as a dad, when your kid's 10, you're like Superman in their eyes. And so that was really a good period. And so, yeah, it influences a lot. And then before he was born, my daughter and I always went to breakfast Saturday morning and gave my wife a break until she was about 5 or 6. And then, I started going with him. But he and I had breakfast every morning. They're in high school. She and I try to do once a week still. She's here in town, and I'm in Hattiesburg. And so, I'm just breakfast is the common thread that runs through my life from the time I was a kid with my grandmother's. Well, the most requested and most downloaded recipe on my website, robertstjohn.com, is my grandmother's pancake recipe, and that's also in the book. But it's on the website if anybody wants it. They are absolutely the best pancakes ever. The recipe, if you just go to robertstjohn.com and go to the search bar, type in Muzz's Pancakes, MUZ''S was her name. I don't know where that came from. My brother was the oldest grandchild, so he named it.
Yeah. Hey, speaking of your son, it's been fun watching his journey to New York, to Italy. Did I read that he was actually working at Emeril's in New Orleans?
Yeah, so he wanted to go in the restaurant business, and I set out an 8-year plan for him, which was first 4 years in college getting a degree, and then the next 2 years at culinary school at the CI, Culinary Institute of America in New York, where he's in the middle of that now. Towards the end of it, he's doing his externship at Emeril's in New Orleans, which is, I mean, it's amazing what the E.J. Lagasse, Emeril's son.
It's incredible. What a story.
21 years old. It's amazing what that young man has accomplished. They closed the restaurant this summer and spent about 4 or 5 months totally redoing it. The kitchen is amazing, and they took it up, as Emeril would say, a couple of notches, but a lot of notches. And it was a fine dining restaurant with pretty accessible, food of Emeril style, and what EJ's done, because, I think at 13 and 14, he was working in the kitchens at like La Bernardin with Eric Repair, and with Danielle Beaulieu in New York at Danielle, and maybe after high school went to Europe and worked in London and one of the Scandinavian countries. I'm not sure. I mean, it's amazing the exposure. He's 21 years old. And then went to Johnson and Wales, which is where his dad went. And he and Harrison, I think, were maybe friends online. And we used to, in summers, we would go eat at Emeril's Coastal, and he was working in there while he was at Johnson and Wales. And so Harrison had a couple of opportunities to work for Thomas Keller in one of his restaurants, do an externship, and he chose Emeril's. Mainly, I'd say primarily because of EJ, but that's also an instance where a son is, kind of taking over for a father. And in addition to just, I encourage anybody listening to this to go eat at Emeril's now. It's what they have done. I mean, it's at the level of French Laundry type thing. The word is that the Michelin Guide is in New Orleans, which it should have been years ago. It's amazing. New Orleans, one of our best, if not the best, food city, is not a Michelin Guide city. Word is they're in town, and if they are, I would be surprised if Emeril's did anything below a 2-star Michelin, if not 3. The team he's put together there is all on one mission. They're together, and it's a very impressive dining experience. You should go check it out.
Hey, listen, some of the best reporters in the country were at the time speaking, some of the best food reporters, many of them.
Right.
So, and I lived in the warehouse district, so I spent a lot of time at Emeril's. I would go there for lunch regularly. Our office was at the lower portion of town there, and would occasionally have the opportunity to visit with Emeril. The EJ story, his mother's from Gulfport, incidentally, so for people who are not aware of that. And
his grandparents still live there, yeah.
Yeah, for sure, and friends, and they're all proud. But EJ's, he's emerged not just as Emeril's son, but as a absolute star. And the restaurant field in America, I mean, there's a lot of people talking about EJ, but he'd take a 21-year-old with the maturity that he's got to not just go and manage that restaurant, but to influence how the food is going to be prepared and what you're going to serve. It's incredible, really.
Well, he created an entirely new restaurant in the same space, and they have a lot of the old standards in the bar. They have kind of a bar menu where they're doing a lot of the things they did for years. But the menu is 2 different tasting menus. One that's kind of derivative of the original food, although reimagined, and one is like over the top good. I just ate there this past Saturday night. You need to have him on the show. He's like 21 going on 60. He's amazing. I mean, that guy is.
I've read
it's amazing what he's going to do.
Yeah, I've read extensively about him, and boy, is he a wonderful chip off the old block. It's just incredible. And what? Hey, listen, it hasn't escaped you the opportunity to be influenced by him, for Harrison's opportunity to be influenced by him, and that whole situation. Wow. I mean, the impact on him is you can't even measure that.
Harrison's loving it. I mean, he's really loving it. He's there in the kitchen right now working. So he's eating it up.
It's a labor of love for sure. Hey, when we come back on the other side, we'll talk about a column that Robert wrote recently. We'll also talk about, it's Mardi Gras, man. All kinds of cool stuff happening around Mardi Gras. But we'll continue the conversation for the final segment with Robert St. John when we come back.
Cool.
Welcome back to the Ricky Matthews Show from the Citizens Bank Studio. I have my friend Robert St. John, the chef, restaurateur, SuperTalk columnist, author. The list goes on and on. I should also say, philanthropist. I mean, the work that you've done through Extra Table we've done full shows about it, but the Extra Table effort continues to go extremely well, doesn't it, Robert?
And man, we served 6 million meals last year to over 60 agencies in Mississippi at no cost to those agencies. So yeah, it's good work. Martha Allen, the executive director, and her crew do a great job. We've got a couple of new projects we're working on this year. One is a one-pot meal of rice and beans that we can deliver not only to feeding agencies, but also in case of emergencies and natural disasters such as a hurricane or something. So, yeah, we're doing good work, and it's the most efficient, effective nonprofit you're going to come across. So.
It really is, and Martha is a star and someone I really enjoy connecting with. You can't spend time with Martha and not be inspired. So you guys make a dynamic duo, that's for sure, and I know you know that. Hey, listen, I had just a tragic death in my family. A cousin died about a week ago, and we had to go to a funeral over the weekend.
Sorry.
And thank you. It was a wonderful celebration of her life, and lots of grandkids and lots of family, and everybody's together and whatever. But when before we left, Ann said, what can I bring that would be something we could go straight to the house with, and that people are going to be bringing meals and everything. And she got the idea. She, what I'm going to do? I'm going to go grab some Paul's King cakes, and bring them. And so we got there, I think, Friday evening, and she brought them in, laid them on the counter, and people immediately started to dive into them. But in that setting, it kind of gave everybody a bit of a smile, and it was, they were very appreciative and whatever, but gosh, they were also very good. And it reminded me of my time in New Orleans. Man, the king cakes, they would do king cake competitions, and all king cakes would come barreling into our offices, as you can imagine. And I decided I'm not going to partake, but I am going to take a sliver because I want to see what they taste like. And it's so interesting to see the different takes that people have on king cakes, my friend.
Yeah.
Isn't that cool?
Yeah. It's last year I did a thing. I opened a bakery here this year, and we were prepping and getting ready last year. And so last year I went down to New Orleans and bought 32 king cakes and brought them back. One of which was a dong fong, which was considered the gold standard of all king cakes. And I really kind of set out to prove that maybe dong fong's not the best. And in the end, after eating 32 king cakes, I discovered that not only is dong fong the best, it's far and away, in my opinion, better than the others. Although there were a lot of really good king cakes that I brought home, and so we set out at Loblolly Bakery, which is the bakery we have here on Hardy Street in Hattiesburg, to recreate using as inspiration the dong fong cheesecake, and I think we've done it. My beef with a lot of king cakes is the bread gets a little dry and hard. The icing is sometimes hard as well, but overly sweet. A lot of things are just overly sweet. They get filled with like jelly donut filling and things like that. And so, what we made sure and took care of when we created the Loblolly King Cake, which I'm very proud of, and very Dong Fong like, in my opinion. The bread, the cake itself is moist and eggy, is very brioche like. The icing is not too sweet and very soft. It comes from a recipe from the 1800s. And we don't just kill the top of it with granulated colored sugar and everything. So it's a really, really good king cake. We decided to roll out 4 flavors this year. We did a traditional cinnamon spice, a basic cream cheese. We did a pecan praline, and then blueberry. And it's a blueberry cream cheese, and we use real blueberries instead of like
wow.
Some kind of gelato.
Hey, so you kind of describe. See, my beef is that most of them you got to eat quickly. If you don't, it does get a little hard. It's too cake-like actually. Yeah. I like moist, almost bordering on dough. I'm not saying literally dough, but I'm just saying I like it to be that feel.
Light and eggy is what we were looking for, and and kind of just not dry.
Yeah, it can stand the test of time. In other words, you can let it hang around for a little bit, and it's not gonna get hard right off the bat. But it's a cool time of year to reflect about king cakes. But I tell you, you wrote a really great column about how you love this business and how you matured in your view toward life and the things that you're doing. You do a lot of reflection, don't you?
I do, because I'm 62, and maybe that's just what happens. But I think it's just because when you're young and you think you know it all, and I'm sure I went through several of those phases, and then you get older and you realize you're nowhere even close to knowing it all, but you know a lot more than you did when you really thought you knew it all. And so I think. I think the older I've gotten, the more open and honest I'm able to talk about those kind of things, and I love this business, and I'll talk about it.
I want to encourage you to go to Robert St. John's column, I Love This Business, at supertalk.fm. You'll be glad that you did. Robert, we're out of time. It's been a pleasure to catch up, my friend.
Thank you, Rick.
You bet. Have a great day.